Welcome back to the Radical Rebrand podcast, where we chat about all things creative, branding, web design, and business. I am your host, Megan Gersch. And if you've been enjoying this podcast so far, make sure that you hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. So let's get right into it. A bunch of my workload lately has been building out brand new websites as well as revamping existing sites to make them look more professional. So I wanted to run through a few of the things that I'm doing in my client builds. Feel free to implement any of these strategies for yourself, or if you need some help, reach out to me and I would love to assist you. Now, the first key to making your website look way more professional is to get professional branding in place. This means using consistent colors, consistent fonts, using the appropriate version of your logo, as well as a consistent tone throughout your website. People that are coming to your website are going to make a snap judgment on whether you are a credible source for whatever it is that you're offering in less than a second. This is why the visuals have to be on point and you have to make a good impression. Going along with this, the language that is featured on the page, especially before you start scrolling, should be customer focused. Talk about what is in it for them. What is that main benefit? Why do they need that product or service in their lives? Maybe whatever it is that you offer is going to make them more sales, or it's going to make them feel more confident. Getting really clear on these benefits is absolutely crucial, and it's going to make selling your stuff so much easier. Your website photography can also make or break your website. If it looks DIY, that's going to throw up that little flag in your consumer's head to be like, hey, maybe this isn't the most trustworthy site. You always want to be thinking about how you can integrate your brand colors into your photography as well as your overall brand vibe. I always ask my clients for a variety of vertical and horizontal photos, and I ask them to provide these at the highest possible resolution and highest possible dimensions, because this allows me to really play around with the design when I am placing the photos onto the website pages. And this ensures that I have the flexibility so that I can add photos to the placements where they look the best. I also love using a little bit of marketing psychology when I am placing the photos on the page. Pro tip, if you use a photo of a human being, you can actually use their eye sight lines to look at your main offer or your focal point. Try to take note of whenever you see this on a site. The next big tip is to create a website navigation that is easy to find and helps your website visitors get to the content that they're actually looking for. Now, you typically have two different places that you want to add navigation to your website. Your top navigation obviously will include your logo as well as your main customer-focused pages. And one tip that I always give to my clients is that we don't need to include a home link in the text part of the navigation, because for the most part, if you take a look at most major brands, you'll notice that you don't see home text links, because at this point in the internet, most people know to click on the logo to go home. Now, when it comes to your bottom navigation, this is where we place what I like to call secondary navigation. This would include your blog, your privacy policy, any legal pages that you need to include for your site, as well as your FAQ page and social media links. I've mentioned this before in my content, but I don't like to include social media links in the top navigation, because let's be real, you work really, really hard to drive traffic to your website. The last thing that I want to happen as your web designer is for somebody to get to your website and then one of the first things that they see be a social media link. They click over to check it out, and then they're off the site, they fall into a scroll hole, and they're never to be seen again on your site. So for that reason, I recommend only putting the social links in the bottom footer of your website. The next key to making your website feel more professional is to do a functionality check throughout your site. We have all been to sites where something feels a little off, or it doesn't work just quite right, or maybe the slider's broken, or you try to submit the contact form and nothing really happens. All of these things need to be tested on desktop and mobile to make sure that everything's working properly. Think about how you use the internet. We're all on our phones 24/7. Anytime you're waiting for a coffee or at a bus stop, you're opening up your phone to kind of check in with what's going on social media, in your email, whatever the case. And this is why having your mobile version of your site locked in and tested properly is so key. Next, you'll want to think about how you can organize your content into a logical flow for your clients. Consider what your ideal client needs to know before they're going to make a purchase with you. This is likely seeing photos or images of what they could get, reading a description, getting the pricing information, testimonials, and you need to be prompting them with a way to take action. I've done hundreds of website reviews in my career, and I can't tell you how many times people have come to me saying, I've done everything to try to get my website to convert and it's just not working. And then I go to take a look at the website and there's not a single buy button on the entire homepage. It's like, yo, like if you're not giving people the opportunity to take that next step and take action with you, they are not going to stick around to try to figure out how. You have to make it as easy as possible, which brings me to the next tip that I want to talk about, which is optimizing your purchase flow. So right after you listen to this episode, I want you to go to your website and I want you to count the number of steps that it takes from somebody seeing your product or service to actually purchasing with you. And I want you to ask yourself, is there any way that you can reduce that number of steps? This means taking a look at your contact or your inquiry form to remove any unnecessary fields or hurdles that might be preventing someone from actually taking that step to work with you. Is there any information that you can collect during the onboarding process instead of asking that person for that information within the purchase flow? My final tip for making your website look a little bit more professional is thinking about all of the tiny details that go into the site. Making sure that you upload a fav icon, which, by the way, if you don't know what a fav icon is, it's basically the little image that shows up in the browser tab when you open your website. You'll also need a social share image. This is the image that shows up when you share your website on social media. And on most platforms, you'll see the website populate with a preview image. That's the social share image. You'll also want an SSL certificate for your website. This helps to ensure that you are creating a secure browsing experience. I recommend that all of my clients have this in place because without it, you can sometimes get roadblock kind of messages where it says the website's not secure, and you just want to avoid that if you can. As I mentioned earlier, if you're looking for some help in getting your website to look more professional and get the marketing strategy in place that will help you actually convert more prospects into clients, I would love to chat with you. Feel free to reach out to me via the link in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.